That was great, wasn't it? You know, if you talk to those kids that went up to Whiteout, you have 101 reasons why they went. If they were like I was in high school, you go because you know there's going to be cute girls there, right? And others, they went to get away from their parents for 4 whole days. Some went to go skiing, but what we saw on Saturday night was Carl Medeiros was the speaker, and he gave a charge to the kids to, instead of following religion and doing rules and rituals, lay that all down and decide to follow Jesus, to do the things that Jesus tells us to do, to seek him, encounter him, and go and do the stuff of the kingdom, to love our neighbor as ourselves. And so when he said that, and he said, any of you kids that are choosing tonight to start following Jesus with your whole heart, about 350 kids stood up in the room. It was amazing. But so anyway, we have another video that we want to show you that was shown to the kids at Whiteout to give you kind of a flavor of what Whiteout was from a kid's perspective. So let's watch this video.
We have followed these teenagers up to a different habitat than it is frontier ranch area. We have followed them up to Monarch Ski Area. It is a gathering place for them to come and abuse snow for some reason. I don't know why, the snow did nothing to them. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and follow them. We're going to maintain a safe distance from them. We're going to try and see how they act upon this area. Let's see what we can find.
Feels like we've walked into the circus where everyone is friendly, only on the surface. They like to think we pay attention, but I think I should mention it's a common misconception. We don't stop, we don't care, the hands up in the atmosphere. To think we pay attention, it's a common misconception. It's been so long and I've been here, waiting just to get you near. Stay with me. I know you and I belong like this together, baby. All the while we go out, they can run the miles, but they don't understand. All they do is pretend. They wait for a negative reaction to get their satisfaction and justify their actions. We say, wait and do our own things. Haters keep on hating, we'll just keep on dancing. We don't stop, we don't care, the hands up in the atmosphere. Haters keep on hating, we'll just keep on dancing. It's been so long and I've been here, waiting just to get you near. Stay with me. I know you and I belong like this together, baby. All the while we go out, they can run the miles, but they don't understand. All they do is pretend. If I had $1 for every time they stared, it would be worth it, I'd be a millionaire. And if I could pay them in how much I care, it wouldn't get them anywhere. If I had $1 for every time they stared, it would be worth it, I'd be a millionaire. And if I could pay them in how much I care, it wouldn't get them anywhere. Stay with me. I know you and I belong like this together, baby. All the while we go out, they can run the miles.
Today was a good day. My friend before, he tell you about the things that he did on the mountainside. But I tell you today what the things we did here. It was a fantastic day. We go on the screamer, we drop off the thing attached to cables. It almost killed me. It's okay. It's a good time. And we also eat a lot of things. We go swimming in the pool. We run around, play games. It's so very good. So thank you so much for watching our documentary. And thank you so much for coming to this camp. I hope you come next year. Perhaps I will see you again. It would be my pleasure. And with that, I leave you. Adios!
Malachi and Randy Brown were the MCs of the camp. Man, those guys were hilarious. But that gives you a little feel of what happened at Whiteout and why you guys are so a part of supporting our youth that go there. And we really do believe that these youth are the future generation of the church, and we've got to raise them up. We got to allow them to become the next leaders. So let's keep supporting our youth, shall we? Yes, all right. So anyway, these kids went with various reasons, but many of them saw God. And Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." The question is, why are you here today? There's many reasons why you're here. There's some that are going to be baptized here in a couple minutes, and you are here to support a family or a loved one or friend, and you're just here because they asked you to come. And maybe you'll see God today. Maybe you're here because your life has come to a point of a crisis, and you've tried everything else and nothing else is working, and you think, well, maybe God will help me. And maybe you'll see God today. There are others that you're just here because it's the thing to do. It's Sunday, and you go to church. But the question is, can you see God today, even though you go to church on a regular basis? Some are here afraid that you'll be found out. You know, there is this thing that happens to many of us, is the things that have happened in our past we're not real proud of. And so we keep running from our past. And so coming to church oftentimes can be very scary because the fear is that I'll be exposed. There's a story of a state trooper of the state of Arkansas that he clocked a semi-truck speeding, and he pulls out on the highway behind him and he turns his lights on, but the truck keeps going. So he gets right behind the truck and pulls over to the left so that the guy in the mirror can see his lights, and the truck goes faster. And so finally he turns his siren on, and he's in rapid pursuit of this truck, and the truck just keeps going and going for miles until finally it runs out of gas and it pulls off the highway. So the exasperated state trooper, he goes up to the cab of the semi, and the semi driver rolls down his window kind of sheepishly. And the state patrolman looks up at him and said, "Didn't you see my lights?" "Yes, sir, I did." "Well, didn't you see me get right on your bumper with my lights going for a few miles?" "Yes, sir, I did." "Well, didn't you hear my siren going for miles and miles?" "Yes, sir, I did." "Then why didn't you stop?" With a few expletives in there. And the man in the truck says, "Well, to be honest, officer, my wife ran off with a state trooper 2 years ago, and I was afraid you were bringing her back to me." You like that one, huh, Tamara? I stole that from our book we're using, Life's Healing Choices. It was just too good because it really is a great picture of what many of us do, trying to run away from our past. The problem we have with that is we just can't. No matter how hard we try, it stays with us. And it's foolish for us to think that we can ignore it. And there comes a point in our life that we have to stop and own up to things. So when Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart," what was he talking about? Now, purity means that something is clean and free of contaminants. Now, if you've been watching the news, in Haiti, they've been having an outbreak of cholera since the earthquake. And for most of us, we know that cholera is a bacteria that gets into the water that from the excrements of humans, and when they ingest water that has the bacteria in it, they get severe diarrhea, vomiting, and become dehydrated, high fever, and they can die. And over 4,000 people in Haiti have died from this. And due to the lack of infrastructure in Haiti, they don't have the means to provide clean water for the people. And unfortunately, what statistics shows in third or fourth world countries is that the amount of money that it takes for them to buy clean water is like 10 times higher than what it would cost you and I. And so the people just can't afford to buy clean water, and they drink what they can. Many of them are uneducated, and they don't know that the contaminants are in the water. And so one of the things that I think has been exciting for us to watch is with the money that you gave for One Day to Feed the World with Convoy of Hope, they actually showed us these filtration systems that they give to families that they're working with. So the children that they're feeding, each of their families have one of these filtration systems. It's actually a 5-gallon bucket, and they have a hole in the bottom, and there's a filter that you screw in, and then you just pour water in the top, and through gravity, it goes through the filter into their drinking a glass or whatever, and it's 99.9% free of all contaminants. And that's something that it only costs Convoy of Hope like $36 each filter. And those things last forever. All they got to do is continue to rinse it out. And we get to be a part of giving them clean, pure water. That's a great thing, isn't it? But what about contaminants in our hearts? How do we keep our hearts clean and free? Some of us have been trying for years, and we try by becoming more spiritual. Maybe if I read the Bible more, I'll be cleaner. Maybe if I pray a few more minutes a day. How about if I go to church more regularly? Then I'll be clean. But that's not what Jesus was talking about. The reality is, the more we try to be clean on our own, the farther away we become from what Jesus was really talking about. We continue to be filled with relational contaminants. We continue to be filled with contaminants that freeze up our emotions. And we continue to be filled with contaminants that become blinders and inhibit us from truly seeing God. So when Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure of heart," what exactly was he talking about? Now, when we look at this pure heart, there is a process that the scriptures prescribe to us that everyone in this room actually can leave here with a pure heart today. So if you could leave with a pure heart today, would you want to hear what that is? I hope so. Now, years ago, when I was at Denver Cemetery, and in school there was this guy that was kind of like a celebrity youth worker. And he had worked in a number of the really large evangelical churches in Denver as their youth pastor. And he was in seminary when I was, and everyone knew who he was. And he even sponsored this big seminar that pastors and youth workers from all over the Denver area came to, and it was a seminar on how to help victims of sexual abuse. So just like weeks after the seminar that I actually went to, it came out on the news that this very man started going to counseling, and in counseling his guilt got to him to the point that he eventually confessed to his therapist that he was getting young men in his youth group high or drunk, and then he would violate them. And he did this in like 3 of the big prominent churches. in the Denver area. And it got out on the news, and it was just a huge shockwave that went through the whole Denver metropolitan area. And I was like blown away. I couldn't believe it. But I think when I look back, what this therapist did was the healthiest thing he could do for this man. Was he said, dude, you got to come clean. And you need to confess before the authorities, before the families and the victims. And it's exactly what he did. And the reality was, it was better for this man to spend time in jail and to be able to heal from his own emotional pain and for his victimizing of all of his victims, is that this was the only way he could truly become clean and be able to see God in his own life. And so I'm wondering, what are the things that we may be running from? There may be some in this room that you have a felony in your record. And that felony just continues to follow you. Every time you apply for a job, you have to check that off, that you committed a felony. And that felony continues to limit the jobs that you can get. And you wish you could erase that felony off your record. Some of us have been through the pain and the agony of a divorce, that you've experienced how devastating divorce is. And every time you're with your children, every time you have to talk to your ex, it keeps reminding you of how painful and how tragic that divorce is. And you wish you could go back. And you wish you could retrace your steps and not have to suffer what you suffered through. Some of us have made bad decisions in how we manage our finances and how we've been running our businesses, and you have run up your credit so high that you have that painful reminder every time the phone rings that you're afraid that the creditors are calling. And you wish you could trace back and that you could have simplified your life before and not got into so much debt. And you feel guilty that you haven't managed your resources the way God would intend you to manage them. Maybe you went to a party. You went to a party just to have a good time. But you overindulged yourself. And you lost control. And you compromised your values. And you ended up being hurt physically and emotionally and spiritually by that one act. The question is, as I could go on and on and on with all of these lists of things that are things that continue to be those skeletons in our closet, can we erase them? Can we have a means of overcoming the guilt in our lives? You know, when we look at what guilt is, John Baker talks about this in his book, Life's Healing Choices. First thing he says that guilt and confidence cannot coexist. And so if we're continually dealing with guilt in our life, we can't have the confidence to move on relationally. We can't have the confidence to move on spiritually. We can't have the confidence to move on in our life's pursuits. It just continues to haunt us, and so we stand back, and it holds us at bay. I love the story about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. He was the writer of the Sherlock Holmes novels, and he decided to pull a prank on the 5 most prominent businessmen in London. And he sent them an anonymous note, and here's what it simply said. It said, "All is found out. Flee at once." And with 24 hours, all 5 of these men left England. But what would happen if you got an anonymous note and it said, "All is found out. Flee at once"? Where would our response be? The second thing is guilt puts a damper on all of our relationships. That when we have treated people in a way that has caused destruction, or when we have been hurt or victimized ourselves by other people's bad choices, what happens is we hold people at bay. It can often cause us to overreact in emotionally charged situations. Maybe we isolate and we avoid. Maybe we become ultra controlling, that we do what we can to control our environment to make sure that we don't get hurt again. On the other side of that is parents feel guilty on how you've raised your children, and so you become overindulgent with your kids. You like a helicopter parent that you're just hovering over your kid to make sure that they don't experience any suffering or any frustration in their life, and you're constantly coming to the rescue. And so our kids are raised up to be selfish and self-centered and don't know what it means to really be responsible for their own life. And guilt can also, the third thing is keep us stuck in the past. That we are so focused on looking in the rearview mirror and focusing on what has happened in the past, we can't even begin to look forward. It's like trying to drive a car where you're constantly looking in the rearview mirror, that you're going to run into things, aren't you? So, how do we let go of the past? How do we let go of our feelings? How do we let go of all of our experiences that we can truly move forward in life? I know that one of the things that I had struggled in the past is an issue of pride. And as I have struggled with this issue of pride, what I have come to understand is that pride is like a two-sided coin. On one side, when we have pride, we become critical of others because we think we're better. I'm sure none of you guys struggle with this, but this is just my story, okay? But what's on the other side of that coin is extreme lack of insecurity in myself. And because I wasn't feeling confident in myself, it was easier to go into this pride mode and judge others that aren't as good as me. And so, when I was in seminary, the first year, I was in youth ministry for a number of years and have been around a lot of speakers. And so you're in seminary and you think you know everything, right? And so we go to Jane's church that she loved, and she had been going to for a little over a year. And as the pastor got up to speak, this was my posture. Kind of like some of you guys in here right now. Just kidding. So I'm sitting there like this, all smug. And after the service, we walk out, and Jane's very hopeful that I like her church. And she goes, "What do you think?" I said, "I didn't like it." "Gee, you don't like it? What didn't you like?" "Oh, I didn't like the pastor. I didn't like the way he preached. He didn't have anything good to say." And, it was just like, I don't want to go to that church anymore. But what was really going on inside of me was I was dying. I was feeling so insecure in myself because I had just left Young Life and had failed miserably in the ministry. And so when I was looking at this guy, it turned into this facade of pride, and it was keeping me from seeing God in that situation. That there was no way I was going to hear a word that this guy was saying. Now, what is the things that are in our heart? And what I had to do was I had to come clean. I had to admit to myself that my pride was hindering me from being able to hear God speak through other men and other women. And it was a process of God humbling me. Have you ever been humbled by God? Let me tell you, it's better to repent now than to be humbled by God. Because being humbled by God isn't fun. I mean, God smashed me. And he just grinded that pride out of my heart. And it wasn't a fun process. So, how long will we allow guilt to fester in our hearts? Most of us know that there's a physiological reaction to emotional stress. Some say that 75 to 85% of all illnesses are caused by emotional stress. So can we move beyond this guilt? Can we move beyond our emotional baggage? And one of the things we have to do is we have to come clean. I shouldn't say this because my doctor is in this room right now. But I hate going to the doctor. I mean, I have to get sick, really sick, before I'll even think of going to the doctor, even though I love the bro. And usually it comes to my wife saying, Kirk, I got you an appointment with Dan. And that's the only time I'll go. Because we don't want to be exposed. We don't want to hear bad news, right? So we do anything we can to avoid going to the doctor. And the same thing, we avoid everything we can to going clean before God. And coming clean means to openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. That's what coming clean really is. And that's how we move beyond the guilt that holds us back. And so there are 3 steps to doing this effectively. The first one is to take a moral inventory. What I would recommend is that you would take some time, that you get out a journal, and you just pray, God, fill me with the Holy Spirit right now, and begin to download in my mind the things that are causing distress in my life. And start just writing as the Holy Spirit starts giving you things. Psalm 139, 23 and 24, it says, search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. This needs to be our prayer when we do that, is God, reveal my heart to us. Because reality is, most of us don't know. Because we don't take the time to really search it out. We stay so busy to avoid really knowing what's going on inside. Are we guilty of that? And so, when we do that, we go to Hebrews 8:12 that says, for I will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more. That is the great thing of us truly coming clean before God, is when we write it down and we confess it to Him, we lay it at the cross like we did when we came and nailed the things on the cross. He takes it and He wipes it clean. Clean, the slate is wiped totally clean. The second thing is we need to accept responsibility for our faults. We got to own it. We got to truly be honest with ourselves of what we are doing to contribute to the problems that we create in our life. One of the things that happens when we're not accepting responsibility for our own faults and our behaviors is we rationalize. And so we make every reason in the book of why we should be doing what we're doing when it's causing this wake of destruction in our life. We think that we're really not hurting anybody, that it's just this little thing. It's just between me and one other person, or just between me and this computer, or just between me and this bottle, or just between me and these pills. And all of a sudden we look back and there's this huge, massive wake of destruction behind us, and we go, how did that get there? The second thing that we'll do is to rationalize is we blame others. Well, we say, because of what so-and-so did, that's why I'm doing this. We simply will not take responsibility that I'm at fault, that I am the one at wrong here. If they wouldn't have done that to me, I wouldn't be in so much pain, and it wouldn't cause me to be doing this. And the third thing is self-deception. This is when we just don't own up to our faults, that we're blinded to it, and we are so deceived that we're not seeing what's truly in our hearts. 1 John 1:8 says, if we claim to be without sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. So, if I say take a personal moral inventory, and you get out your journal, you could write in there, that's for other people, not me.